Howdy, everybody. Steve here, KM9G. Do you want to get the best deal on a radio that you can possibly get? Don't be sleeping on eBay, folks. Used radios are a fantastic way to get a lot of power for a little dinero. Let's get started. First off, I saw this radio a while ago. I own this radio, so I have a little bit of insider knowledge about it. But can you get a good deal off of eBay? Let's kind of put deal in perspective real quick. Right now, you can buy a Yaesu FT891 for about $600. That radio is 100 watts, has fantastic filtering, is a portable format, does not have a tuner, does not have a waterfall, does not have a color screen. No big deal, just putting stuff in perspective. You can buy a Xiegu G90, which has less than fantastic filtering, some, but not equal to the 891. Again, it's perspective here. It has a color display with a waterfall. It has a built-in tuner, and it only puts out 20 watts, about $400 to $500. So that's the price range that we're looking at. The radio that I want to introduce you today is the Kenwood TS-570d. Believe it or not, this is still on Kenwood's website. Granted, it's a page that I think they forgot about. I think they forgot this page existed. But this is the TS-570d. This is what it looks like. This is a base station type radio that you would put in your house. It has a carry handle on the side. They say you can take it out with you, but it weighs a ton. This thing's a brick. Compared to the 891, this thing's heavy. Compared to an IC7300, this thing's heavy. So I don't, just the way they made them back then. According to rigpicks.com, this radio was made from 1996-ish to 1999. So that gives you an idea of the age of this radio. Back over on Kenwood's website, we'll get an idea of some of the features. 16-bit AF stage DSP delivers superb audio quality on both transmit and receive. That is fantastic. Adjustable transmit sound quality with NR1 noise reduction system. So this thing has a noise reduction system built in. We'll do a demo of that in a future video. Digital filtering with 3 new DSP filters for Morse code gives you the edge when conditions are tough. Compact enough for mobiling. This is what I was talking about. Yet large enough to build a station around. It's big. It's big and heavy. Computer control with the RCP2 software. This thing has a fantastic cat control reference towards the back of the book. Really easy to get this thing onto your computer and get it controlled. Interference reduction, audio shaping on transmit, CW Auto Tune, a world first. Interesting. So there's probably a button on the front of the radio somewhere. Yep, there's a button on the front called CW Tune. And what that'll do is if you're close to the station, you hit the button and it will zero beat your frequency. Zero beat's a fancy way for saying I am on the frequency that you are transmitting on. Operator engineered features. So they went through a lot of trouble to make this thing human-centric in its interface. They put some thought into how you're going to use this and where your hands are going to be and where your eyeballs are going to look and how to direct your attention to the things that need to be directed to. New menu and user feature. There are 46 menus on this thing. There's a pretty big list of menus. And there's actually 2 sets of menus. There's the A menu and the B menu. I haven't figured that part out yet. I just know it exists. Extensive memory functions. You have 100 memories you can program into this thing. Scanning, large LCD, optimized sizing. We talked about that a little bit earlier. High performance transmitter section, hot receiver section. Hot receive action here. CW features the auto tune that we talked about earlier, built-in electronic keyer. This stuff was all new in the late 90s when this radio came out, as far as being built into radios. Packet and FSK was built in, FM features are built in. This has a built-in antenna tuner. It's probably about a 3-to-1 match on the bands that this thing works, which is 160 through 10. The VS3 option, it doesn't come with this option built in, but you can find these things on eBay all day long. And this will speak out your frequency. Rig control option, digital recording unit, so you can record. This would be for you to record your CQ call to make outbound calls with. Lots of different ways to do this, but Kenwood makes a module for this radio. Data transfer. This is weird. You can connect this radio through its serial port on the rear to another radio of similar vintage and transfer your memory settings from one radio to the next. So you can clone this radio to another radio. Not something I've seen in base station radios. It's got a Vox circuit, and it has the ability to control an amplifier. Okay, so here they're saying that the whole radio is 10 and 5/8 by 3 3/4 by 10 and 11/16. And like I said, it's a chunky boy. It weighs 15 pounds. The thing is heavy with antenna and belt hook. Belt hook? Really, Kenwood? Belt hook? Okay, so now we know that the radio exists and we know a little bit about the radio from looking at it. and including even having a picture. I mean, this radio has more buttons on it than most modern radios do, which is a fantastic thing. What can you do in terms of price? How does this thing look on price? I'll show you a trick for figuring out prices. And here's a bunch of Kenwood radios for sale. I want to make sure that I'm in the ham radio transceiver section of eBay, because eBay's got a bunch of categories. And then I want to scroll down to the bottom here, and there is an option to pick sold items. So I'm going to click on sold, and it's going to filter out only the ones that have sold recently. What we really want to do is we want to just see radios. So I'm going to assume that this radio is going to cost at least $100 used, which is not an unfair assumption. But what that does is it filters out the bottom end of the market, so I get just to the radios. And so here we have a radio that just recently sold on November 8th, 2022, so last week, for $375. So already this radio is more powerful, has better filtering, still has a built-in tuner than the G90 does. So I think that's a great deal. You can do digital modes with this just as easily as you can with the G90. It's not as portable. And I'm not saying the G90 is a bad radio. What I'm saying is bang for the buck. If you're getting a first-time radio, this would be a good deal for you. This one's up to $500 with its original box. Looks like it's in great shape from the pictures. So you can see these things from $300 to $500 to $541. So there's a good price range on here for what this radio delivers. But this is eBay, so how do you know you're getting a good unit? Let's take a look at one of these units. We can see that the seller Hairbag69, which is kind of a weird seller name, has 1,962 transaction feedbacks provided to them. They've probably sold more things than 1962, but not everybody provides feedback all the time. All right, let's click on the feedback number and take a look. There is one negative feedback within the last 6 months and one within the last 12 months. It could be the same one. I'm not sure how eBay works on that, but 1 out of 2,000 isn't terrible. Let's go take a look and read some of these. Great seller item was just as described. It's an MFJ 949, so he's selling some ham gear. Good product, Kenwood SP23 external speaker, again, more ham gear. So here's the negative feedback, and the user's complaining about how it was packed, and the seller says it was packed in bubble wrap the same way it was packed from the factory, and sent packing pictures, etc. So this looks to me like this buyer just was not happy with this, and it's outside of his normal thing. So it's a front fender for a Honda PCX 150. Very good item as advertised. So sweep generator plug, 100%, Swan CB power and SWR meter. Seller is detailed and cares about doing their absolute best for a Hallicrafters radio, tube radio. And shipping a tube radio is difficult for a couple of reasons. Number one, the tubes are a little bit more fragile than our solid state equipment is these days. And number two, they're usually pretty heavy. So arrived fast and excellent Nero Wolf Mystery Series by Rex Stout. Okay. So a couple old books. Zune MP3 player. So you get the impression that this guy sells some ham gear and knows what he's doing when it comes to ham. And you get the impression that he does a good job of packing. And one negative feedback where he sent it in the original factory box in the original factory wrapping. Make your own judgment call on that. But one negative feedback out of almost 2,000 isn't bad in my book. So I would consider this probably a safe bet. This one's already sold, so you can't get this one. But like that's the decision-making process. The other part of the decision-making process is to look at the pictures of the radio. Let's take a look and see what we've got for pictures. So the radio looks fairly clean. I don't see any dents or bruises or anything on it. There's some accessories in the picture. I'm going to take a look at some of the stuff in the background and see, like, how does this guy keep his shack? How does the equipment look around it? You know, because he did a job taking pictures to make sure that he got the subject matter in there. But what else does he have? So I see this Cantenna dummy load. So I know that he's, testing his equipment out. The display looks like it's in good shape, very visible, no scratches, not washed out. This picture's fine. It looks like it just went through a factory reset or something. Picture from the side. So I see power supply, external speaker, radio. This might be a microphone stand here. Looks like he's got it sitting on his kitchen counter. Okay. The back side of the radio, he's got an antenna plugged in. He's got a decent looking power cord with it. The other side with that carry handle, because for a 15-pound radio, you're going to need a carry handle. So more stuff on the ham radio workbench here, showing you that it comes in its original box with its original manual. So hopefully, and I might ask a question here, hopefully he's going to pack this radio in this box. So it's got its original packing material and shipping info, and then pack that box inside of another box so the box arrives clean. So I have a nice pretty box because I like boxes. Box closed and tied up. And there it is. So he's putting the box inside of another box for shipping. So this is well protected. There it is, taped up on the outside and ready to go. So this looks like it was already shipped in this box And then inside of that box is another Kenwood box. So he's actually giving you both Kenwood boxes, which is interesting. I didn't know Kenwood did this, but it's nice that he has both of these boxes. And if we go back to where that negative feedback was from the other buyer, he included pictures of how the thing's packed in the auction. So the buyer knew what was going on. So I don't know. Anyway, so I'm going to give that negative feedback a pass based on my intuition here. And so this is a silent key sale. He's testing the radio. Master cotton that came in the box. I also missed this, and I also missed that. So this will be in the original box inside of its master carton. And we saw that in the pictures. Fantastic. So this would be a seller that I would trust to sell the radio, and it seems like they know what they're doing. They've given a couple of hints here and there that they know what they're doing. So that's fantastic. Okay, so next thing is, can you get the original manual that goes with this radio? Let's take a look and do a search for that. You can do these steps in any order. I mean, you can go look at a website and find a radio, and then find its owner's manual, and then find one for sale on eBay, and then make a good decision to buy it. You don't have to start with the radio first like I did here. So Manuals Lib is a good place to find manuals. They happen to have one. That's great. Can I download it? So I have a copy of it. Okay, there's a download button there, and I can download it. This is a scanned copy of the manual. There might be a better version of this manual where it's actually a true PDF and is searchable, as opposed to just scanned pages put into a PDF format that are graphics that you can scroll through. Let's take a look at page 5 just for the heck of it. Yep, see, it's a little crooked. I do have a better PDF version of this manual, but this would get you started if you didn't have a better version. And what are some of the things I want? I want to go back to the table of contents here. There's a little bit of indexing going on. Antenna connection. This radio on the back panel has 2 antenna ports. So I want to know what the antenna ports are for. Why does it have 2? That's an interesting feature. It might be worth just buying to figure that out on its own. Checking in on the antenna system, it does have a protection circuit if the SWR is greater than 2.5 to 1. So you can actually consider yourself a little bit safe if you hook up a bad antenna, or if your antenna conditions change. Like there was a storm last night and you plug in today and all of a sudden your antenna's gone. Your radio is not going to cause itself too much damage. I just scanned the manual pretty briefly, and it looks like they just kind of take it for granted that you would automatically know what to do with 2 different antennas. It appears that they're both transmit and receive capable, and you can pick one, and it remembers the settings for antenna for the band that you pick when you switch bands. So you might have an antenna for, like 160 and 80 meters, and then another antenna for 40 through 10, or whatever your situation may be. Interesting that it does that. That would be fun to play with. So there's something that the G90 or the FT891 don't have built in. So that's pretty neat. So while we're thinking about the rear panel, let's take a look at some other stuff that's on the rear panel of this radio. So we have the 2 antenna connections that I mentioned. We have the antenna tuner connector. That's interesting. So this thing will drive an external antenna tuner, or receive a signal back from an antenna tuner. It has a COM port for connecting to the computer. So I know I'll be able to do cat control. It has a connection for a Morse code key and a connection for a Morse code paddle. So I know it's got an internal keyer. Sometimes you'll just see a key connection, and then you can go into the menu system and pick paddle. But this one has 2 separate ports, which is pretty neat. Accessory 2, ACC2. So that would lead me to believe there's an ACC1 socket, but there isn't. But the accessory 2 socket is 13-pin male DIN connector for connecting various accessory equipment. I know this because I've been around ham radios for a while, but this is where you would be able to connect a sound device to do digital modes like FT8, a RIDI terminal, a TNC, a packet modem to get yourself onto packet radio type stuff. This is a way to get data in and out, audio data in and out of the computer, as opposed to like radio data being like what frequency you're on, or what filters you have set up, or what antenna port you're on, which would come out of the data port, the COM port over here. And then it's got a big old fan on the back, so I know it's got some built-in cooling. We have a power connector. This is the same power connector that ICOM uses on their radios. Ground connection, external speaker, and a remote. Let's see what remote does. So remote connects to a linear amplifier. Excellent. So this thing can drive an amplifier. So there's a lot of extension that I can do with this radio. This is a good radio to start with and continue to grow a station from. This is fantastic. All that leads me down the path of, is this fun? That's the other thing that you have to figure out. Is this radio fun for your operating style, your operating desires, things you want to play with, whatever? Is it worth what I would call the opportunity cost? Let's talk about opportunity cost for a second. You're going to buy this radio off of eBay for $300 to $500. You're going to play with it for an unknown amount of time, maybe forever. Maybe you're going to love this radio and keep it and pass it down to your children. Who knows? But can you use this radio for a month, 2 months, 3 months, enjoy it, learn about it, learn some new things about ham radio that you didn't know before, put it back in the box that you got it from the eBay shipper, put it back on eBay and sell it. If you bought it for $375 and you sold it for $375 and eBay took its typical 13% sale commission, is that 13% the amount of enjoyment you're going to get out of the radio? It's roughly $50. That's about the cost of going out to dinner and a movie once. And you're going to play with this radio for months. I think it's a fantastic deal. So I bought one and I will play with it. I will enjoy it. I will learn about it. I will share it with all of you, and I'll stick it up on eBay and move it, or I will give it away to somebody. I have no idea what the future of this radio is, but I know what the present of this radio is, what the gift this radio gives me is. I hope you can take some information away from this video on how to size up a used radio, where it might fit in the market space. Maybe make the determination to buy a new radio instead of a used radio, or buy this radio instead of a new radio. Now you've got a bunch of tools in your toolbox to figure out if this is the decision for you. So there's a video right over here I think you will enjoy next. Thanks for being awesome. I'll see you over there.